In September of 2021, Hurricane Ida dumped historic rainfall on New York City. Basements flooded across Staten Island and Brooklyn and Queens. Heating systems destroyed, personal property ruined, people drowned, and thousands of homeowners called their insurance company only to hear 6 words: flood damage is not covered. Your standard homeowner's insurance does not cover flood damage, period. If you own a home in New York City, you need to hear what I'm about to tell you. I'm Joseph with the Bridge and Boro Team at Real Broker. I sell homes across Staten Island, Brooklyn, and beyond, and flood risk is a conversation I have with almost every buyer and seller I work with. I mean, I'm on an island, right? Islands, a city of islands. Staten Island's coastline, Brooklyn's waterfront neighborhoods, the increasing frequency of severe rainstorms make this one of the most important topics for New York City homeowners. Don't forget about Hurricane Sandy back in 2012. I've seen clients buy homes without understanding their flood zone. I've helped sellers navigate the disclosure requirements around flood risk, and I've watched neighbors lose everything they have because they assumed that their standard insurance covered water damage from storm. This isn't a topic that anyone wants to think about, but it's one of the most important financial decisions that you'll make as a homeowner. Let me walk you through everything. Now, as usual, I put together a free guide, in this case, a free New York City flood insurance guide that covers flood zones, coverage options, how to check your risk, and strategies to lower your premium. Link is in the description and pinned comment. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, creates flood maps that divide every area in the country into flood zones based on risk level. These zones determine whether you're required to carry flood insurance and how much it costs. Here are the zones that you need to know. Zone X, sometimes called Zone C on older maps, is considered moderate to low risk. This means FEMA estimates less than a 1% annual chance of flooding. Most of inland Staten Island and most of inland Brooklyn fall into Zone X. Zone AE is high risk. FEMA has determined there's at least a 1% annual chance of flooding in these areas, which translates to a 26% chance over a 30-year mortgage. The South Shore of Staten Island, the East Shore, Brooklyn waterfront neighborhoods like Red Hook, Coney Island, and parts of Sheepshead Bay fall into these AE zones. Zone VE is the highest coastal risk. These are areas subject to storm surge and wave action during major storms. Parts of the Staten Island waterfront and some Brooklyn coastal areas are in these VE zones. The most critical thing to understand is that being in Zone X does not mean that you're safe from flooding. Over 25% of all flood insurance claims come from properties outside these high-risk zones. Urban stormwater flooding, sewer backups, and infrastructure failures can affect any neighborhood. If your home is in a FEMA-designated high-risk flood zone, AE, VE, and you have a federally backed mortgage, which includes FHA, VA, conventional loans through Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, your lender actually requires you to carry flood insurance. It's not optional. It's a condition of your loan. If you're in Zone X, flood insurance is technically optional. Your lender will not require it, but here's my honest recommendation. If you're anywhere near the waterfront, in a low-lying area, or in a neighborhood that has experienced street flooding during heavy rain, get it anyway. A standard NFIP policy in a low-risk zone can cost as little as $400 to $700 per year. That's the cost of one nice dinner a month to protect against potentially catastrophic loss. Well, a really nice dinner, but still. If you own your home outright with no mortgage, nobody can force you to carry flood insurance regardless of your zone, but financially, going without it is a high-risk gamble that I would not recommend. Now, you have 2 options for flood insurance: the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, administered through FEMA, or private flood insurance from commercial carriers. NFIP is the government program. Coverage gaps at $250,000 for the dwelling and $100,000 for contents. Premiums are set by FEMA's risk rating 2.0 methodology. NFIP is available to anyone in a participating community, and NYC participates. Private flood insurance is offered by private carriers and can often provide higher coverage limits, additional living expense coverage, and sometimes lower premiums at NFIP. In recent years, private flood insurance has become increasingly competitive, with some policies running 20 to 40% below FEMA rates for the same property. The catch with private flood insurance is that coverage terms vary by carrier. You have to read that policy carefully, especially nowadays. Throw it into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever and just ask it like, hey, what exclusions do I have? What am I covered with? Et cetera, et cetera. Not all lenders also accept all private flood policies, so check with your mortgage servicer before switching. My recommendation is get quotes from both NFIP and at least 2 private carriers. Compare coverage and price. Your insurance agent or broker should be able to run both options. Staten Island has some of the highest coastal flood risk in all of the 5 boroughs. Hurricane Sandy in 2012 was devastating. 24 Staten Islanders died. Thousands of homes were damaged or destroyed, particularly along the South Shore from Tottenville up through Great Kills and along that East Shore from Fort Wadsworth through Midland Beach, coming down from the Verrazano. Oakwood Beach was hit so hard that the state actually launched a buyout program, purchasing homes from willing sellers so the land could be returned to wetlands. That area is now a nature preserve. And if you drive through it, I think it's called Foxwood Beach. It's very interesting. It looks like you're in like Nebraska or something. There's like one house and it's all fields. It's really weird. The Midland Beach and Newport Beach areas remain in high-risk flood zones. Many homes have been elevated post-Sandy, which helps with insurance costs, but that risk always remains. The North Shore, including St. George, Stapleton, Tompkinsville, has moderate risk, primarily from stormwater flooding during heavy rain events. In Brooklyn, the highest risk areas are Red Hook, Coney Island, Brighton Beach, Manhattan Beach, Gerritsen Beach, parts of Sheepshead Bay. If you have beach or bay in your neighborhood name or island, you got to kind of think that maybe you might be in a flood zone. Now remember, inland flooding from heavy rain has hit neighborhoods across both boroughs. Homes with below-grade apartments, finished basements, or ground floor living spaces are especially vulnerable. Flood insurance covers direct physical damage caused by flooding. Flooding is defined as water that rises from the ground up, not water that comes from above like a roof leak. Dwelling coverage includes structural damage, foundation, walls, flooring, built-in appliances like furnaces, water heaters, permanently installed carpeting, and electrical and plumbing systems. Contents coverage includes personal property like furniture, clothing, electronics, portable appliances. What flood insurance does not cover: your car, damage caused by moisture, mildew, or mold that could have been prevented, temporary housing or living expenses under standard NFIP, and landscaping or outdoor structures like fences, patios, and pools. Important, there's a 30-day waiting period from when you purchase a flood policy to when coverage begins. You can't buy flood insurance when a storm is approaching and expect it to cover that storm. Plan ahead. In 2021, FEMA rolled out Risk Rating 2.0, a new methodology for calculating NFIP premiums. This replaced the old system that based them primarily on flood zone and elevation. 2.0 considers additional factors: distance to water, type of flooding, the cost to rebuild your specific home, and the home's elevation relative to anticipated flood levels. For some homeowners, this meant lower premiums. Properties that were overcharged under the old system got relief, but for others, and most of them, especially waterfront properties in high-value areas, premiums increased significantly. Some Staten Island waterfront homeowners saw premiums jump from $2,000 to $3,000 per year to $5,000 to $8,000 or more. P has annual cap increases of 18% per year, so large premium increases are phased in over time rather than hitting all at once. But if you're in a high-risk area, expect your premium to trend upward over the coming years. This is one of the reasons to get quotes from private carriers. Private flood insurance is not subject to Risk Rating 2.0. Their pricing may be more favorable for your specific property, especially now. If your flood insurance premium is painful, there are real steps you can take to reduce it. First, get an elevation certificate. This is a survey document that shows your home's elevation relative to the base flood elevation. If your home sits higher than the flood map suggests, an elevation certificate can dramatically reduce your premium. The survey costs $300 to $500 and can save thousands per year. Second, elevate your mechanical systems. Moving your furnace, water heater, electrical panel above base flood elevation reduces damage risk, lowers premiums. Seems pretty obvious. Third, install flood vents. Engineered flood openings in your foundation allow flood water to flow through rather than exerting pressure on the walls. This can lower your premium and protect your foundation. Fourth, compare NFIP to private flood insurance. Get at least 2 private quotes. As I mentioned, savings of 20 to 40% are common. Fifth, if you're building new or doing a major renovation, consider elevating the entire structure. Post-Sandy, many Staten Island homeowners elevated their homes and their flood insurance premiums dropped by 50% or more. Flood insurance is not exciting. Nobody wants to think about worst case scenarios, but I've seen what happens when homeowners are unprepared, and it can be devastating. The financial loss, the emotional toll, the months of rebuilding. If you take one thing from this video, go to FEMA's flood map website, check your zone. It takes 30 seconds. The link is also in the description. Again, free guide in the description as well. It covers everything I discussed today, plus additional resources and actionable steps. If you're buying or selling in a flood zone and want to understand how it affects your transaction, book a free consultation. I deal with these situations regularly, and I will walk you through your options. Again, I'm Joseph Ranola with the Bridge and Boro Team at Real Broker. Subscribe for more homeowner education that can save you real money.